Fishing. What I'm going to talk to you about tonight is hopefully not too boring for you, but it's going to be offshore on the fly, okay? But I'm going to talk more about how to be successful at catching these fish offshore and how to be consistent at doing so. It's one thing to go out offshore here and venture off the coast, get lucky, run into a school all nice and tight, the right school, they're ready to chew, you throw a fly and you catch them and you did it, right? But how do you do that over and over and consistently? How do you do it once those fish start spreading out? So instead of talking more about what flies we use, what leaders we use, terminal tackle, any of that, we're gonna really dig into the how. How do you do this? Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Offshore fly fishing, we're talking about tuna, yellowtail, and dorado. That's our big three. That's our main three that we're going to be out there hunting. Some days we can catch all three. Some days we can throw in bonito. Some days we can throw in skipjack, right? But once we get off this coast and we get out in the blue water, that's what we're targeting, those three fish. Do you guys, anyone know what a pelagic fish is or what that means to be a pelagic fish? Who knows?
World traveler.
World traveler, ocean traveler, right? These fish they're not calicos, right? They're not sitting on a rock. We're not going to anchor up next to them. We're not going to start chumming and try and drag these fish up and throw flies at them, okay? So you kind of ask yourself, well, what do we do? You know, how do you get out to a big old blue open ocean water that's hundreds of miles, and how do you find a fish? You just drive until you see one, right? That's it. You just spin more gas. More gas. Yeah. Usually when someone hears about it and we talk about it, that's one of the things they say, you know, is how do you do it? You know, how do you fly fish for tuna? How do you fly fish offshore? I've caught them on bait, but I had never done it on a fly rod. And how would you? Right? Sometimes when you're fishing bait, we're at such a disadvantage. Anytime we go out there with a fly rod, we're at a disadvantage. We can't drop down to 300 feet. I can't cast my fly 100 yards, right? But I can throw a jig 100 yards and I can drop a weight down. But we're limited. We're limited when we're offshore on the fly. And that's kind of the fun. That's kind of the fun and the challenge of it, is to have that limitation. So what does it take to be successful? What does it really take to be successful offshore? And what does it take to be consistent at it, right? Mostly technique, right? There's certain ways you can track and find and fish these fish that you start realizing, okay, you know, this is how we're gonna do it. And I've done that. I've spent plenty of time out there throwing flies at these damn things, trying to get it dialed in. And I'd like to think I have it pretty dialed in now. There's really three key ingredients that we need to have together in order to catch a fish on a fly offshore. Who thinks they know those three ingredients? What's the three things you would need besides fish and salt water?
What?
There's no luck in fishing. It's just like golf. There's no luck in golf, right? It's all skill.
Water temp.
Water temp is one, but not one of the key ingredients.
A good captain.
No, that's it, done. No more ingredients. Just a good captain, right? Okay. You need to find a fish within 100 feet of a boat, because that's as far as we can go. You need to find a fish that's in the upper part of the water column and not 200 feet down. And you need to find a fish that's willing to eat a fly. If you can find those three things and put them together, you can be successful offshore. Okay. How do you do that, Mark? Well, I'll tell you how. With these key ingredients, we're still missing one main element of all of this to be put together. Okay, call it what you want. I'm going to call it productivity. Okay, you can call it efficiency. Probably everything we've done or you guys have done in life that you've been successful at has probably been due to productivity or efficiency. Okay? Same thing with fishing when we're out there. We have to keep that in mind, right? When I'm out there and I'm fishing, what's the one thing that I'm battling? Time. Okay, I've got 9 hours or I've got 12 hours to get you guys out there, get you into a fish, and bring it home. So productivity is everything. Okay, I don't want to waste too much time. I don't want to go to areas that I don't need to go to look for fish. Productivity. In doing so, there's a few things I manage with that. Okay, time management. First one to talk about. If I leave the dock at 6 a.m. and I got to be back at 6 p.m. and I've got a 2.5 hour run each way, well, I just knocked 5 hours off there. We got to go by the bait barge and get bait. There's a half hour. We got to stop and clean fish. There's an hour. I'm down to 5 hours out of a 12-hour day to try and find these fish. Not only do I need to find these fish, I need to find the right fish, and I need to find the right situation that these fish will play ball. Okay. So you got to think about time. That whole time, I don't think, has anyone in here fished with me? I don't think so, right? If you have, you will notice that it can be kind of talkative in the morning, and then Captain Mark kind of shuts off a bit, and you just see where I'm just focused. All I'm thinking about is fish and how do we get there. And then once we catch a fish or two like that, or we start noticing signs of life, I'll start to lighten up a little bit, all right? Time management, that's the biggest thing. Get out there, get on the fish, and get back. Chum management. For those of you who aren't familiar with saltwater, we do chum, okay? Basically, we're attracting fish saying, hey, get over here. We have treats for you. Come play with us. You know, leave that bait ball over there. Leave that boat alone. Come to us, right? Big ocean, we got to find these fish and we got to bring them to us. Fish management. I am probably one of the only people who ever hear say that you need to leave fish to find fish when you're offshore, okay? Leaving fish to find fish that are biting. I don't want to sit here for an hour and chum and throw flies at these fish if they're not going to eat, right? We just killed a whole hour of our day on fish that aren't going to eat, okay? Managing the fish, knowing, and after spending time on the water, I've understood, and I can tell, I can say, hey, these fish are ready to go. You know, if we can get in front of them and we can stop this school of fish, we're going to be hooked up. It's going to be game on, guys. I can get in front of a school, I'd be like, you know what? They have no interest, right? We eat a few times a day. Fish eat a couple times a day. It's all about being there when those fish start to feed. And then you can take that to all your fishery, right? When a hatch happens, that's when the fish feed. What do you do when there's no hatch? Well, you start nymphing, right? So you got to find fish when they're feeding, but what do you do when the fish aren't feeding too? So you got to manage your time, manage your fish. Client and fisherman management. This goes to a couple different categories. Is one, what's an angler's ability? Okay, whether it's myself, whether it's a guest or a client, what's our ability? What are we able to do with this fly? But also, what are the conditions of the ocean? Are we in 6-foot seas with a 20-knot wind chop on it? We sure as hell are not sitting up on the bow and casting a fly, I'll tell you that. Just the boat sitting in neutral is moving 3.5 miles an hour, right? So conditions is huge. When I look at this, and I look at all of these categories here, this is my thoughts, this is how I will plan my day. Okay, I'm gonna take all of this into account. And I'm thinking about this throughout the day. I'm watching that clock, I'm watching my mileage, I'm watching my fuel. I'm watching how bored the client is for the first 5 hours of not even seeing anything, right? We may not find a fish till the last hour, and it's a long day, but all of a sudden we found them, we found the right ones, and it was all worth it, right? We may find them first thing in the morning, and we may not see them again all day. I still don't know which one's better, finish strong or start strong, right? But either way, we find the fish, that's all that really matters. So managing the productivity. Okay. Back to the 3 key ingredients. Finding fish within 100 feet of the boat. And that doesn't really mean finding them, oh look, there they are. It means how do you position, how do you work it to get fish within range of a fly, okay? How do you find them in the upper water column? And how do we find fish that are ready to eat? How do we mix these ingredients together, okay? So my question to all of you is, why San Diego? Why is San Diego one of the best places to try and do this in? And there's one main reason, there's one main tool we have here in San Diego that allows us to be successful. Besides salt water and besides tuna.
Fishing fleet.
Fishing fleet, you're close.
Fish dome.
Radios. Live bait, right? You can't go buy 40 pounds of live bait before you go fish in the morning in Mexico. You can't do that almost anywhere besides Southern California. This allows me to load my bait tank up of 100 gallons of water with 4 what we call scoops of bait. And I can go out there, I could have a fast moving school of tuna go under my boat, and I can start railing this over the side, and I can get that school to go, start playing with us, right? That's what we have. That's our advantage, live bait. Now let's think about those ingredients a little bit, okay? Now we can stop a school of fish. We can keep them with the boat within that 100 feet, yeah? We can bring fish up in the upper water column. Okay? And I'm not talking, when you're with me, when I'm offshore and you look at my fish meter, I don't look below 150 feet. Because if there's tuna down at 300 feet, ain't nothing I'm gonna do with them. You know, we're not dropping jigs down. So 100 feet, 150 and up, I've seen tuna just go from 150 feet on the meter, which is 3 pieces of china. So they'll come up for it. But that's, again, that brings them up.